What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down the Jiu-Jitsu. Are you a purple belt?
I'm a Heath Pedigo purple belt.
Yeah, it's
That's
different.
legit.
It's a different purple belt, bro.
Not a Gracie Baja.
So I'm sitting down with a martial arts master named Wes Powers. What is up, brother? Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I always like it when you come here.
Dude, I appreciate that. I've heard that before. But, dude, I want to get into it with you. I know you've got a lot to talk about in terms of how martial arts has helped your life, what it's done for you here, training at Pedigo Submission Fighting. But first, I want to ask you the question that I ask everyone to start the show off with, which is, how has Jiu-Jitsu helped your mental health since you started?
A lot.
What do you think is like the biggest thing it's done for you?
Well, so I started off with other martial arts before I really started on jiu-jitsu. I did a little bit of karate, then I did Army combatives when I was in the Army, and MMA as well. But MMA was the first big one that I did. I did that for like 12, 13 years. Then I got into jiu-jitsu for like the last 3 years, and I did jiu-jitsu while doing MMA, and I actually picked it up just to be a better MMA fighter. So I'll be referring to martial arts, as a whole, because I consider myself a martial artist. So a few basic things. It's given me an outlet, and it has helped me have an environment where I can actually socialize and thrive. So for me, with an outlet, with the trauma that I've faced in my life, it doesn't really just go away. It's a repressed thing. And what I've learned is that when something traumatic happens to you, that, gives you that fight or flight response, and you can't do anything about it. It's not like it just goes away.
Yeah.
So from things that happen in childhood or whatnot, you carry that stuff with you. And I grew up with a lot of anger and resentment. And I didn't have healthy ways to express that. And I was finding myself getting into trouble and having bad relationships. So I started doing MMA. You can hit the pads and choke people every day, and you can release that anger that you have in a healthy way. As far as having like the socializing part, I grew up with ADHD, still have ADHD. Got diagnosed when I was 6 years old, and the people at school and my family, they're like, I don't know what we're going to do with this kid. He won't shut up. He won't sit down. He won't, he just won't calm down. So I figured out I had ADHD, and I was always bouncing off the walls, and and I've learned that it's this thing called stimming. With the ADHD brain, it's actually a brain that's not slower, but not like in a mentally retarded way, but slower. So you gotta like amp yourself up, and so that you feel like you can pay attention. And that's the attention deficit part. So I always feel like that. I need to, go and choke people and run and jump and bounce off the walls. And jiu-jitsu's given me a place where I can do that. And also just like the social awkwardness, because I've learned that like ADHD is like akin to other things like Asperger's and autism. And when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't have dates to prom or homecoming or get invited to parties. And I didn't know what it was like to actually fit in.
Yeah.
And I felt like I really missed out on a lot of like important parts of my life. By coming to PSF, all of a sudden I met other weirdos that were cool with me being different, So, and I think that's one of the things that's different about jiu-jitsu than, say, MMA. They all have their kind of characteristics. But your typical jiu-jitsu fighter in the United States, he's a little weird. You can look at his rash guards and his marijuana smoking, and they're eccentric people. So, It's giving me people to fit in with, goofballs and weirdos.
Yep. It's a lot of nerd assassins, as Joe Rogan calls us. And I really resonate with that. You know, a lot of kids who grew up playing video games, playing Halo, playing Call of Duty, Elder Scrolls, all that stuff. And then you grow up and turn into an adult. And I mean, I still love Halo, don't get me wrong, but I want to do that stuff in real life. You know, I want to be the video game character. And I think that's what it unlocks. It makes you feel like, oh, wow, I can be this superhero. I was just watching this clip with Jocko Willink earlier today, and he was talking about how jiu-jitsu is a superpower. And that's totally true. It's something we've talked about on this show before, how it's like this inherent superpower that is latent in the human being. But then when you awaken it and you start to train, it comes out of you almost like how lions learn how to bite at a certain point in their life, you know, and it's important. I think it's critical for a human being in the same way that intimacy is critical. You have to have this fighting outlet as a person. Like if you go look at chimpanzees in the wild, they're always scrapping. They're always wrestling each other and playing, or dogs. Like we just got this new husky puppy for Christmas and he is always wrestling constantly. It's constant. I just feel like what you said is so true, man. Like people need an outlet. Humans need an outlet, especially people like you and me who are neurodivergent, because I'm on Asperger's. So I've got the diagnosis and OCD. I've got that one too. So I'm collecting them. But the people like us, man, you're right. Like we don't fit in a lot of times, and we feel like there isn't really a place for us in society. And oftentimes we're told that there's not a place for us. Like in school, you're labeled as the weirdo or the eccentric kid. Or when I was in the army, I was the problem guy because I was always having an issue. You know, I always had some issue that I needed help with, or I always had some counseling appointment that I was going to, or something like that. And, you know what I mean? Like I felt different. And it's not that anyone in the military, my commander was actually very helpful to me, you know, and he helped me a lot. But I felt different. You know, I could tell that I was different, you know, sure. So you feel it. But I think in a place like this and a lot of jiu-jitsu academies, you feel finally like, oh man, these are my people.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and you talk about that outlet, and we need that, like, and you were referring to like chimpanzees and whatnot. There are certain things that we just innately have a desire to do. You're talking about intimacy, to have sex or to fight.
Yeah.
You know, like if you think about like evolutionary psychology, we had to kill things.
Right.
We had to fuck, excuse my language.
How dare you?
Yeah. I'm horrible. Yeah. But so I think one of the reasons why we have so much depression and anxiety and conflict nowadays in the world is we live a certain way for like thousands of years,
right,
with our evolutionary psychology, and we're primed to be a certain way. Now we have laws that tell people you can't fight, can't kill people, stuff like that.
Can't be a serial killer.
Can't be a serial killer.
Yeah.
You know, but, and I'm not saying do that, but back in our Paleolithic days, you were threatened, you fought. So since we can't do that anymore in a civilized society, we need other outlets like jiu-jitsu. And it's so depressing for like men, I think men especially, to like, you go to a cubicle and you're going to come home and you're going to communicate your feelings with your wife. And then you're going to be really patient with like, you know, your kids. And it's just like, you know, I just need to go somewhere and blow off some steam. Like, is that too much to ask to go and choke somebody?
Right. Yeah.
So, and I think that's just the outlet you're talking about. And
yeah.
I think that with jiu-jitsu is, you know, as far as fitting in, it's way different being, so like growing up, there was like just norms for like the community that I was part of. And I don't know your background, but I'm from a small town. And you just had to do certain things. You had to dress a certain way, act a certain way, and really conform, or you're just going to be cast out. And I always felt like, well, why can't I just be myself?
Hmm.
You're told be yourself growing up, that one of these values people tell you. And then when you are yourself, you get alienated for not conforming. So I feel like jujitsu's given me that ability to finally like express myself and be energetic and to have fun and be competitive and all that stuff. And, really just blossom into my true self, who I am supposed to be.
Something we've talked about a lot, just you and me, is entrepreneurship. Like, I know that you're getting into reselling and all that stuff. How do you feel jiu-jitsu's helped other parts of your life? Like maybe getting into starting a business or something like that?
Oh, goodness. That's a really good question. I would say one of the biggest things that I've struggled with, my whole, for a lot of like my upbringing, and then it kind of spilled over into adulthood, was just low self-esteem. I had really bad self-esteem. With my background, no one ever giving a shit about me is really how I felt, and not getting the things that I needed. Not being accepted, not having friends. I really just felt as if the whole world was telling me I was garbage. So, and then, it's like your belief system changes after a while, and you start to believe that. And it changes the way you act and the way you see the world, the decisions you make, all this. So when it comes to something like entrepreneurship, before jiu-jitsu, I would just self-sabotage anything. I felt like no matter what I do, I'm just going to be a failure. So I might as well not try it. And even better than that, I'm going to fuck it up.
Yeah. That one. You don't have to fail.
Yeah. You don't have to fail.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with that devastation of like when you would go to school and you would try to make friends and you would like be made to think that you're a fucking loser.
Yeah.
Or when you went out for a basketball team and people ruined it for you and we wanted to so bad to be part of that, and like the whole team ruined it for you, or whatever the case may be. It was so devastating, the idea that I put my heart and soul into something and then I would get disappointed. It was crushing. And I just think that I would self-sabotage for that. And jiu-jitsu has failure woven into it. Even the best practitioners like a Marcelo Garcia or a freaking Michael Pixley, or maybe not Michael Pixley. I think he probably does everything perfect.
He came out of the womb like that, I'm pretty sure.
But they fail.
Yeah.
They fail. You go for an arm bar, you're going to miss that one. And then you're going to have to go for a triangle. You go for a double leg, you might have to turn into a single leg. You're going to get tapped out in class. You're going to get your ass beaten class. It's going to happen. So I got used to being disappointed, and it's just being with that like a daily part of your life. That's one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Dealing with that adversity.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm a recovering self-sabotager as well. What I found was that there's like a correlation. I think, at least this was the case for me. I hated myself. Like, I was dealing with self-hatred and self-loathing, and I didn't approve of myself, and I didn't approve of my life and the choices that I had made. And as a result, I didn't like myself. And this was all subconscious. This was all like below the surface. I didn't realize this till I started like diving in, because the question I had was, I realized I was self-sabotaging at everything. And I was like, okay, why would I do that? Well, must be because I don't like myself. And then I keep going down that rabbit hole. And that's really what I found was, it was because I didn't like myself. And what do you do to someone you don't like? You sabotage them. Or you punish them. Exactly. You chastise them. Stuff like that.
Very much.
And I dealt with that for a long time. Long time. And it's really just in the last couple of years that I started to kind of shift that and realize that, like, no, I am good enough. You are good enough. We're all good enough.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like doing the thing. You know, like
Yeah.
no one, like you were saying, no one's great at jiu-jitsu on their first day. Buchecha just made a post the other day saying how he lost his first 8 tournaments in the very first
I
round.
think I've seen that.
He said, and he's like, you know, for people who don't know, he's one of the greatest ever. And
Gordon Ryan.
yeah, and Gordon Ryan said the same thing. He said he didn't win a single big event till he was a brown belt, but he was competing the whole time. You know, all coming up. Gordon Ryan loses until he's a brown belt. No one's ever heard of him until he defeats Keenan Cornelius, and then suddenly people start hearing about him.
Yeah,
You know, and same thing with Buchecha. No one hears about him, and then he has a couple big victories. Or the same thing with Elon Musk. No one hears about him until his SpaceX thing gets started.
Yeah.
You know, same thing. It's like you just have to realize it's a part of the process. And like you said, jiu-jitsu, it trains that into you.
Mm-hmm. I have to mention my team.
Yes.
It's a very special team. It's very unique. There's no other team like PSF.
What do you think it is that makes PSF so unique?
God, it's not just one thing. If I was to really pick one thing that made PSF stand apart from the other teams, I think it's the people throw around words like family a lot, and they don't really mean it.
Yeah.
I think there very much is a sense of family amongst the guys. Maybe family's not the right word, but you could use brotherhood, camaraderie, whatever.
Yeah.
I very much do feel like I'm part of a fraternity. I'm part of a group of men that, you know, rely on each other, that, you know, spend a lot of intimate moments together, whether it's traveling or fucking dealing with all the shit with tournaments where we share rooms and you drive there together, or when we lived in a laundromat, you know, stuff like that. You really get to know somebody when you do that. And I feel like the other gyms I went to, yes, jiu-jitsu was a big part of our lives when we would go there, but it was almost like we punched in and we punched out at work, except it was just the jiu-jitsu class at night.
Yeah.
You know, so I would say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Everyone here, the way I've described it to people is like, and I've only been coming once a week, so I'm still not anywhere on the level you've been where you lived in the gym, right? That's at that next level. But what I've seen just from coming up that amount is like, it feels like a university here. Like the conversation is just all about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like I was at lunch just a minute ago with E-Man, and he was watching jiu-jitsu videos, and I was like, oh, what are you watching? It was a Giancarlo Bodoni video. I was like, oh, I was gonna watch that video today. Like I had seen it on my YouTube, and I was like, man, what's he showing? You know, like that's how, like, you see what everyone's doing, and it's like we're all a bunch of jiu-jitsu nerds. We're all obsessed.
Yes, very much.
We're
so.
all just completely obsessed with this ninja game that we found.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. I think the old gyms that I would go to, I would have such a thirst for knowledge as a pro MMA fighter or as someone that wanted to be competitive at jiu-jitsu. And when you're like that, you know what it's like. You want to squeeze every ounce of juice you can out of the professor, and you'll go and you'll talk to him, and you just see his kind of eyes glaze over, and he's kind of like, yeah, you know, I got it.
He's not obsessed.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
He's not. And you know, it's kind of like Andrew Wiltie said, he's like, you're pushing a sled by yourself, and here everybody is pushing the sled together. And I have never felt like I couldn't go get the jiu-jitsu or the training that I needed to be, to improve myself. It's been the opposite here, where I will not feel like training, but everybody will be training. It's the opposite. You know, here I'm just another guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like back home, I'm just this fucking obsessed guy with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You're going to get your fill of jiu-jitsu here. You'll get tired of doing jiu-jitsu before this place will cancel a class, or some guy won't want to drill with you, or someone won't want to do that extra round at class. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true, man. I found myself saying no because I'm so worn out.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Emanuele, the Italian guy, who's freaking amazing.
He's pretty badass.
He's so good. And the other day, like he was asking me if I wanted to wake up and drill in the morning. And I was like, dude, I've got to get on the road and get home.
Yeah.
I can't. But I felt like, holy crap, like it just keeps going here, you know, and there's always more. There's always someone who wants to drill with you, and you know, it doesn't stop. You know what I mean? Like it's just constant. And that's why these guys are the best in the world, because they're dedicated. It's discipline.
The other thing I want to mention about these guys is we're talking about like finally feeling like you fit in. I used to think that because I've been through something in my life that was terrible, and if I had told some of my story that they would just be mortified. I used to think that because I've been through that kind of stuff, I was special and I was unique, and I didn't know, no one could relate to me. And that no one else had been through anything, you know. But when I came here, I'd actually found other people that had been through some stuff in their life. And I remember, I think maybe even before I came here, I think Jacob Couch was on the Daisy Fresh reality show, and he's telling a story about how his mom just dropped him off at the babysitters, didn't bother to come pick him back up, you know. And I remember being in a car ride with some guys going up to 5 hours away for a tournament, and a guy being like, "Yep, you know, first time I ever shot up drugs was my mom did it. She shot me up when I was 8." Wow. Like, what the? And same guy had feds come into his house, kick the door, and put a gun to his head when he was sleeping on the floor one night when he was like 9 years old or whatever, you know, like I've trained with other people who, you know, they come from Oregon in a crappy van, you know, and it's like they're from like Compton or something where it's just violence and there's nothing there for them. And these other gyms out there, they'll want to know about your past. They'll be like, "Hey, I need to know if you've ever broken a law, and I need to know what you did in 1990, because if you've done something wrong, then you can't train here, because that means that hey, what's up?
What's up, man?"
Or, you know, because that means that I'm training a bad, irresponsible, whatever." We don't really think about that.
Well, martial arts are sacred, you know.
Well,
they're only for the elite.
Right. And the elite.
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't subscribe to that crap.
Right.
You know, Heath never judges anybody from his past. That'd be like one of the biggest things. And I know we got to wrap this up, but like when I came here, I had no gyms to train at back home practically. I've been almost kicked out of every gym because I was an asshole to people. Or I would beat the hell out of them in training. And I wouldn't care if you were like just a fucking insurance salesman and I was a pro MMA fighter. I'm going in there for blood. I did so many things to piss people off. I didn't even have a place to train. And when I asked Heath, like, "Hey, can I come stay here, live here? I need to do something different with my life." Like, it just wasn't working out where I was at. And yeah, you can live here. No, not even ask me a question. Like, sure, $100 a month and just train your ass off. Like, cool. Wasn't welcome anywhere else. And he takes like the toys in the attic that no one wants to play with anymore as fucking junk, like an arm missing on the action figure or whatever the fuck it is. And he takes them and he turns them into PANS champions and world champions and like people doing a lot better in their life. Yeah. So that's helped me out a lot too. So I got to give him credit because none of this would be here.
Yeah.
Without him.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm very grateful.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Heath, if you're watching, I think there's a lot of people here grateful for you.
Everybody is grateful for Heath. He's changed more lives than he could ever understand. He's done more than I think he could ever comprehend.
It's powerful, man. It's powerful. So, dude, we got to wrap this up, go train some gi. But I have one last question for you. I know this is a big one, but can you just share, living in the laundromat? Mm-hmm. What was like the biggest takeaway that you had from that experience? Like, what was the biggest thing that has stuck with you? Because not a lot of people are going to do that. Move to a freaking laundromat and train jiu-jitsu full time, basically, and live in like almost like a military sort of situation. So What was that like?
Well, it was really one of the interesting things to me is I really learned how much shit doesn't matter. Like, things don't matter. I quit worrying about what I wore. I quit worrying about the car I drove. I quit worrying about how much money I had. And when I did that, I found that I had more abundance. We'd shared everything that we needed in that gym. The car I had was just fine. It was a piece of shit, fucking old car, but it got me from point A to point B. I always seemed to have everything I needed.
Yeah.
Whereas I think before I went to the laundromat, my whole mind was about security. Like, I need to get a good job, or before that, I gotta go to college, or before that, how am I gonna scrape by and make ends meet?
Yeah.
And when I quit worrying about all that shit and then started doing what I loved, I had everything I wanted, which sounds ironic, but I had some great people in my life. I'd have people back home, I'd talk to them, they'd be like, "What are you doing with your life, Wes?" You're like, "Where are you working?" I say, "Well, I'm living in a laundromat, doing jiu-jitsu twice a day, and then I work tournaments on the weekends." And they give me all kinds of lectures. I'm 34 years old, and I got a college degree, Army veteran. Like, what about your future?
Yeah, you can make 6 figures at a cubicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just didn't get it. And you won't get it unless you've lived something like that. So that's the biggest takeaway, to just not give a fuck about all those comforts and securities of the world.
Right. I think one of my favorite quotes from this podcast was the episode with Josh Saunders. I don't know if you know him, but he is an ADCC veteran. And we were talking about what jiu-jitsu does for people. And he said it so well. He said, jiu-jitsu will make it so that if you go order coffee and they put oat milk in your coffee instead of almond milk, or no, he said almond milk instead of oat milk, you won't care.
You won't throw a fit.
Yeah, you won't care. I was like, that is so well said. It puts it all into perspective. It's like, it doesn't matter if you got my order wrong today at the fast food place. Like, who cares? Or even, if you got freaking debt collectors after you, or the IRS is after you because you owe money or something like that. Like, whatever. They're not going to shoot you. Like, you'll get through it. Make some money.
Yeah.
Pay people. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Or like if your roommate says, "Hey, would you please do the dishes?"
Yeah.
You're like, "Fuck you.
Fuck you, man. How dare you ask me to do the dishes?"
You get into a fight at the laundromat. It totally changes your perspective on the whole thing.
That's funny. Is that what it was over? Was it over the dishes?
Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Tell us a little bit about that. We got a minute.
Oh my God.
What was that like?
Do you want to go from like start to finish?
Well, we've got class in a
No.
moment, but yeah, for people who don't know, you were in a bit of a brawl at the laundromat.
So I lived with
over dishes.
I lived with a psycho. And when I say psycho, I mean like you can't beat it. You can't kill the guy. I don't know what you got to do to fucking win a fight against Jesse Nolan. Probably have to shoot him in the fucking head with a gun. But, yeah, I lived with the guy who kicked me out because I wouldn't do my dishes. And I went back to the laundromat and then I wouldn't shake his hand because I was pissed off they kicked me out of the house. And then he felt disrespected by it. And I kind of brushed him off and said, "Well, fucking get over it, or whatever." And then he smacked me across the face. And I'm like, well, now I got to address it. And I went up to Heath and I was like, "Hey, Heath, this motherfucker just hit me across the face. I got to fucking beat his ass now." And Heath at first, he's like, "Well, what do you want to do about it?" He's being all nice. I was new at the gym, I said, "Well, no, I want to fight him." And then Heath's whole demeanor changed. Like, he's so calm and cool and collected. He went from like being cool. He's like, "You can fight him." Like, he didn't give a shit.
He was so excited. He got excited.
he got the beat changed when I said that. He's like, "Well, fucking let's fight." And I'm like, well, I kind of got to know Heath a little bit better when it happened. I'm like, well, he's about it,
Yeah.
And he actually went over there, approached Jesse. He's like, "Just, hang out. Let me get done with class. I'm going to set this shit up." He was talking to Jesse and they were actually talking. And I can tell when someone's yapping about fighting and they're not really serious. And when someone's serious about it, and him and Jesse are going over and he's like, "No, yeah, he'll fight you. He's not scared. Because Jesse thought I was fucking scared of him because I let him smack me. I didn't, because like I get this martial arts code, you know, and I won't fight someone.
Bushido.
Fucking, yeah.
Must be honorable.
Yeah, I went to Heath and got permission. So we set the whole thing up. I talked to Heath. He's like, yeah, fuck it. Let's fight. We can fight him however you want, you know? And so we ended up, I put the 4-ounce gloves on. He went bare knuckle. We fought. And, you got to remember, I went from being an MMA fighter where it's 3 5-minute rounds to a fight with no time limit. And I didn't even understand that until I'm beating Jesse's ass. And I looked up and I saw the fucking clock on the wall was off. And I'm like, I was a little tired.
Pride round.
Yeah, it was worse. It was like a Valley Judo fight. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I'm getting tired. I'm beating his ass. He's not getting like discouraged or hurt. Like, and there's no time limit. I'm like, motherfucker. So I just dumped the whole gas tank out on him, trying to finish him and trying to hit him as hard as I could because I was pissed. I gassed out. He choked me out. Everybody fucking celebrated his victory and they rooted for him to beat my ass because I was the new guy. And I had to take my lumps and get over that. Live there, but I got a lot of respect from the guys. Like people like Jacob Couch and Spatchy for the first time would actually acknowledge me and be like, "Great fight," instead of some like negativity or hostility because I was the new guy. So I don't know. It was a big event for me.
Yeah, Jim. Dude. Well, I feel like I'll put the link down below for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But I think that stuff like that is what we need more of in society. It sounds weird, but more violence in controlled settings, I think, is a great thing. Like in Texas, they have that rule where if you got a beef with someone in Texas, you can go find a police officer and he will referee the fight. And
mutual combat
law.
Awesome.
Where if you and me had a beef and we found a cop, we could be like, hey man,
yeah,
referee this fight. We want to have a fight. And the cop would say, do you consent? Yes. Do you consent? Yes. Yeah. Get it on. And then if it gets too out of hand, the cop's like, whoa, guys, I got a gun. Boom. You know, he shoots you. But kills them. But deals with it. But you get what I'm saying. Like, I think it's good. Like that kind of stuff is like otherwise you just have a passive aggressive beef with the person.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, get it out. You know, if it gets out of hand, you got someone there to pull people apart. That way no one's getting killed. You know, there's no one getting sent to the hospital even. Like you're going to be fine, right? Like if you get beat up, like you said, dude, you know, you took your lumps and hey, moved on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, from the outside looking in, I see you and Jesse in the same room every single time I come here. It doesn't seem like you guys have any beef from what I can tell. You know what I'm saying? Like you squashed it and that's great. That's awesome. Like we need more of that in society where it's like, okay, do you need to be this person's best friend? No, but you don't have to have this like unspoken thing. You can just deal with it. Be like, hey, I got a problem with you. I got a problem with you too. Yeah. Hey, you referee the fight. Make sure I don't kill him.
Yeah.
And let's go. You know, like it's good.
Oh,
you know, I'm not trying to get in fights with people, but if someone had a beef with me and I also had an equal beef with them, why not? Let's just do it, man. You know, now I'm not saying we bring knives and kill each other, but that's where it gets too far. I think that's where it crosses the line, where it has to be reasonable to some extent, you know, where you can't be stabbing them in the face. You know, that's where it's like, all right, now we're crossing.
We need to do a whole episode on this one.
Dude, mutual combat. Mutual combat. Okay, this is a whole episode. We for real got to go train, but we'll do a part 2 about mutual combat because this is just a preview for that. But we talked about this a lot when I studied philosophy in college, the idea of mutual combat and whether or not it's a good thing. And I have so many thoughts on this topic. So this is a good preview. Wes, this has been a great chat, man. So we got to wrap this up. Go train. Try not to die. So tell us, if people want to follow you, find out more about you and what you're doing, do you got a social medias or something, anything going on?
Wildman_nation on Instagram. That's for all my martial arts and stuff. Wildman_nation.
Love it.
Instagram.
I'll put the link down below. And yeah, thank you, brother.
Cool.
Appreciate you.
Glad we could do it.
Yeah, dude, this is a lot of fun. We'll do part 2. Talk all about mutual combat, bro.